Yumi's not in the bans either.
Lucian, Nami, Zeri, Yumi once again open for this first game of EDG and NIP. Of course, Maokai was taken away from NIP. I just think Maokai as a champion, when it does come to those major objectives, is just so oppressive. So it's a really good ban. I respect it. Of course, Ashe also got taken off because she is able to flex from that mid to jungle role, where Mako has played 7 unique champions in these 7 different games.
Yeah, Mako, he's having fun so far in the LPL. He's spreading his wings a little bit down at the bottom side. Like you say, 7 champions played, but he's already got 1 game on Nami. This might be his first repeat with the Lucian locked in. You gotta believe that he's gonna lock in that Nami as well.
Yeah, I'm assuming NIP is just going to look for a jungler now before they all get banned out. Sejuani really good, especially with how Invincible has been playing on those top lane carries like the Jax, the Fiora, all still available on the table currently. But my eyes are on Palt because Palt has been subbed in once again for this series, where Dream had a pretty tough time in that series up against top esports, and they decided to sub in their newly signed 19-year-old mid laner, and I believe he's from the Korean League, and he had a pretty good showing up against a rookie. He played the Sylas and Victor, went even in lane, although not an explosive player. I just think being stable is good enough.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, it was against rookie, so I feel like we need more time, we need more footage of Pao. But like you say, playing in a lot of the Korean tier 2 tournaments over the years. Last year, though, there's barely any footage of this guy. In 2022, he was in Turkey for a single month on Supermassive Blaze, literally played like 7 games, then left that team. Then we hadn't seen him until this offseason. So really curious to see more of this guy, to get more tape on what he's capable of. Certainly a player that you've got to keep your eyes on. But Renekton banned up towards that top side as the Sejuani was locked in. We're looking towards solo laners here. What are your priorities if you're looking for NIP? What's your blind pick to go into the second phase?
I mean, Jax is just so strong, especially in the hands of Invincible, right? He had 2 extremely good showings in that series up against top esports. So I'm assuming that if EDG Ala can't... Oh, I mean, Jax has already been banned. Sorry, I didn't actually spot that. But when it comes to these solo laners, of course, these extremely aggressive laners like the Fiora is still available on the table. But my eyes are on this mid lane pool because not a lot of mid laners have been taken off, and Fofo has been really stepping up on the Akali, and he has been extremely aggressive in that early game.
Yeah, I mean, Fofo on those like stylish melee mid laners definitely can bring a lot to the table. Like you say, the Akali been looking good for him. It's going to be a Kassadin ban towards that mid lane, and the Jace. This is something that honestly has just been a mid lane pick this year. We've seen very little of it in the top side comparatively to in that mid lane. But that said, Ala, one of the players to take it to that top side, taken away from him by an IP here.
Yeah, Jace, I mean, is a really good flex for EDG now that they have to absolutely prepare for the worst. If it does go top lane, well, I guess Ala won't have that winning matchup. But talking about these mid laners, the Akali does get hovered by Fofo once again, and I just think this combo of Vi plus Akali is going to be so terrifying for the side of NIP, because you're just a kitten with a little Zeri as well.
Kitten on a little girl's shoulder. We'll see if they're going to be able to survive the pressure Fofo could bring as Akali and K'Sante. It's not a bad rotation, is it, for EDG? That is some serious power coming out of the solo lanes. And like you say, how against Rookie had to play against that Akali. He played the Sylas. It was a very quiet laning phase and came alive during the team fights. Looks like the Sylas is going to be the option once again.
Yep, he did have a pretty decent showing, especially up against Rookie's Akali, like you said. I think when it came to the team fights, he did find more direction and he felt a little bit more visible. But in the laning phase, he was just going even. But we'll have to see how he does up against Fofo. But once again, my eyes are in this top lane matchup. The Jace has been flexed atop for Invincible, and Ala, like I said, he's been relegated to more of a tank role when it comes to the team identity now, and he's just trying to get past laning phase and focus on those 5v5s.
Yeah, we've got to return that conversation to the bottom side again as well, right? Where we've got Photic on the Zeri. This has certainly been one of the most successful champions for the team. They've got 3 games on the Zeri so far and 3 wins on the Zeri so far for NIP. But they're up against this Lucian army, and I feel like this laning phase, we've seen it go both ways in the LPL, because early on, the Yuumi and the Zeri can get serious work done against Lucian and Nami.
I feel like a huge role that will determine the spot lane 2v2 will definitely be the junglers, especially with Xiaolongbao on this Sejuani. She has to be there when a EDG goes for those bot lane dives, because of course you have the Lucian Nami, you want to be playing ahead and you want to be poking them down to the point where they are available with this Vi to just dive you and dive you repeatedly once those summoner spells have been burnt. But something that I've been noticing for NIP is that Xiaolongbao hasn't been able to play the best games because of how suffocating he's been feeling when Invincible and Pout aren't really showing to expectation.
Yeah, I feel like Xiaolongbao almost has the opposite problem to like junglers like Kanavi right now, where my big question for Kanavi in the league is, okay, you got 3 winning lanes every game, what do you do when you don't? Whereas for Xiaolongbao, it's like, okay, you got 3 lanes that are, you know, not necessarily dominating in the same way. It's like, how can you get creative to get these laners ahead? How can you find your own advantages? There might be an advantage found in the bottom side as Mako taking some damage here, but looks like Photic will back away in the end.
Just getting some cheeky trading for that spell piece for both the support. But yeah, this Jace and Cassante matchup I think will be very interesting, because Jace is of course a very strong, aggressive laner, especially when you do get to those team fights when the items come online. But his weakness is those ganks, and if Jie decides to just camp Invincible in these early games, instead of the Lucian Nami, I think Invincible might just suffer from that, because I'm expecting Xiaolongbao to specifically play towards Photic, because he's of course on the Zeri and he needs that protection as well.
Yeah, he'll certainly need some help scaling up towards the late game. Pout versus Fofo is another lane though, where we already mentioned Pout's laning, whether or not he's going to be able to pop off. Fofo is a player that historically was dominant in the lane phase. Like, one of the biggest criticisms towards Fofo over the years has not necessarily been his individual laning. Usually that's great. Obviously not every game, but the issue has usually been how well does he play with the team. And I feel like when you've got a Sejuani on your side, when you've got the Vi on your side that wants to be proactive and wants to be scrapping, you need to be ready to jump in with the team. So I'll be keeping my eyes on that across the course of the day.
Yeah, I do like EDG's overall team identity. Very aggressive, very straightforward. You press the ultimate, you go in, and you just try and execute someone from that first initial combo. But the scary thing about EDG's team comp is that once you pull the trigger, and let's say you opt into a bad fight, well, that's pretty much it.
I'm loving this camera angle. We can see both jungle paths while the bot laners are duking it out, and some serious damage going either way in this bottom lane. Looks like Photic and Duo winning out so far, but both bottom lanes have sustained. But Xiaolongbao, a fast route into this bottom side, as JJ starting his red buff. Xiaolongbao wants to find him here, has spotted the player out, waiting for the health bar to be low. JJ has smite. Xiaolongbao doesn't have his available. He's gonna have to go for a kill instead. There's the red buff low here. He's trying to get it without the smite.
Didn't steal it.
JJ just dashes away. I like the idea from Xiaolongbao, but now he's caught in a really awkward spot. Fofo just gonna move in, start to hammer away, but realizes that that's Sejuani's tanky.
Very, very tanky. I think he's just gonna take the Raptors right in front of Jie's face. Unless you do try to... Oh, the smite does come out. I believe it went to Xiaolongbao. But yeah, Sejuani on this in these games, I think if you're not doing those level 3 invades when you have the red buff available, you're not playing Sejuani correctly. And it's something that we've been seeing across the entire world, where Sejuani is just playing extremely aggressive. And usually you either burn a flash or you do end up executing the enemy jungler at their own red buff.
Yeah, and on top of it as well, it pulls Fofo away from that mid lane, right? So it means that Pout gets a little bit of time to push that wave in, get the wave in whatever position he wants it to move forward in the lane phase. But the junglers in the bottom side here. Xiaolongbao already getting that Scuttle Crab. He's going to move into the Tri-Brush. He's going to find a Vi over the wall. But Photic can leap into the play and grab himself first blood.
Sejuani is just such an impressive jungler, especially when you have a Zeri that can jump over the wall and cheat the tempo. JJ obviously didn't expect that and have Photic come right up and collect that kill, but first blood does go over to Photic once again, especially also with a red buff when trading is extremely important in this lane. Although Photic already burnt the barrier, I think that he will do just fine collecting this red buff, but A scaling champion with a first blood going towards NIP. Very, very scary things for the side of EDG.
Yeah. And I will say, the wins we've seen from NIP have pretty much all been off of the back of Photic getting an early lead on Zeri. Like, this is the dream scenario for NIP. This is the situation where they've managed to find their wins. So a really, really good start. If you're an NIP fan, up in the top side though, Ala trying to stall for the 2v1. Invincible can't quite close the gap here, and it looks like he might no! Over aggression from Ala, and Invincible shuts him down.
Invincibles have been having such an amazing performance for this week. He has been getting solo kills, especially in these 1v2 situations. I respect that JJ was trying to find those angles to help out Ala in this laning phase, but Invincible just outplays once again, and especially on a champion like Jace, once you get those early leads, items come online, and these teamfights are going to be very hard for EDG. Honestly, NIP has been playing extremely great. I think still you do have the buy available for those later teamfights. But Invincible was just trying to get his wave in. Ala, of course, engages in this instance. Already very chunked out from one combo out of Invincible. But Vi, although she lands everything, I just think Invincible played this team fight extremely well. Flashed to dodge the Q3 out of the Cassante and just executed him.
Yeah, I think the thundering blow coming out there from Invincible to get JJ away as Ala flashes in. So you end up, what Ala thinks he's opting into a 2v1, actually ends up in a 1v1. And ends up going down. So really well played by Invincible to not only buy time, but buy himself a kill there. Now massively ahead up in that top side. This lane ain't getting any easier for Ala.
Yeah, that was a perfect example of saying, call an ambulance, but not for me. And of course, Invincible picks up that kill once again. Although EDG does have the buy on their composition, I think it'll be a lot easier to really shut down the Zeri in these teamfights, even if she does get ahead. But it really depends on how ahead JJ is able to recover from the first death.
Yeah, well, I asked about if Xiaolong Bao could get his lanes ahead. So far, so good. Getting the bottom lane ahead. And he's not even needed for Invincible to get ahead. So certainly feeling good so far as Photic and Chuo trying to get some pressure down in this bottom side, trying to bait Leave and Mako into a fight so the junglers can join in. It's just going to be scrapping back and forth though. They won't find the all-in they're looking for.
I'm pretty surprised. NIP is putting their sole focus onto the Zeri and Yuumi. Like I said, protect President Photic, right? But JJ has been hasn't been finding that success on both sides of the map, and I just feel like he's getting a little bit desperate with this buy pick. I would just constantly just catch up on that XP, lock with that ultimate available, and just force plays from that.
Yeah, level 5 currently, and should be. So if he goes over towards that top side, towards his blue buff, waits for those camps to come back up, perhaps could get to that level 6. And like you say, get that lockdown. It's a combo that we've often seen up against Zeri specifically. We see this Vi locked in very happily to try and just shut this AD carry out. I'm not sure if this blue buff will quite get him level 6. He's just over halfway there.
Yeah, we do have both junglers in that top side prepping for the Herald. Leave is level 6.
Yep, the culling gonna go a little bit wide though, unfortunately. Draw tanks about half of it, but Photic happy to just walk away. And that's a big opportunity for Leave and Mako that doesn't quite hit the mark for them.
I wouldn't be surprised if Xiaolong Bao just consistently plays towards his bot lane.
Good exhaust comes out, Cleanse gonna answer. Again, I feel like both these bot lanes are just sparring now for an all-in as Mako stuck on the side. One more hit will get the root and the flash from Photic to grab the kill. Leave dodges the laser, but will he survive? Because we might have a dive here. There are no minions left, but I don't think it matters. Xiaolong Bao just twats him in the head with a flail.
You know what? At least JJ is getting that Herald and he's getting something on the opposite side of the map, because this Lucian and Nami is getting constantly camped by the Sejuani. I did really like the ultimate coming out of Drill. He really placed it perfectly, so when Mako even burnt the flash, the root still occurred, and it was just a really clean 2v2 coming out of NIP, especially with the tiny item advantage from that first blood earlier in the game. We do have EDG engaging first of all. The exhaust is really nice to stop the Lucian's initial combo. Cleanse, of course, burnt, but Photic just hits 6 and starts killing everyone. Nami, of course, is still level 5, so she can't really use any CC to stop Photic from running straight forward. And Xiaolong Bao just comes up with a really slick ultimate and secures the second kill. Also, the dragon does go toward... Oh, the dragon is not yet picked up by NIP, but I think with this lead on the Zeri, it's looking like early dragons for NIP.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But I've been thinking that for about 5 minutes. They don't seem particularly interested so far. Photic in the area, a deep ward onto Raptors. Surely that will be the signal that they will finally go for this objective. Shalambao steps on forwards. They've got the damage there from the Zeri. As you can see, Leave trying to push this wave as fast as he can in the bottom side. Photic might have to head over towards his tower just to collect those minions. There's Ala and Invincible going at it once again. Ala perhaps with an opportunity goes for the all-out on the all-in. But Invincible just flashes away, keeps himself safe.
A little bit of trading we have in this top lane does force the flash out of Invincible, so the Vi does have a lot of more options to find on the map. But of course, Photic does not have that flash either from the earlier 2v2. So maybe EDG can slowly make it back into the game, because I want to see some proactiveness coming out of Digit alongside Fofa. You have two really mobile champions on your composition, so I want to see these side lanes getting ahead.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing them get into scraps with the things like the Herald, for example. I mean, JJ already has that Herald, but next time around, I mean, I guess you have to scrap if NIP don't, but here we go. Final chapter across the team, trying to keep the Zeri alive. Photic still going at the back of the fight, and the health bar's low for EDG. They're all in, has timed out, and now their time is up. Photic with another.
Photic 3-0 at 11 minutes into the game. 0-5 overall being the scoreline towards NIP. This is looking so terrible for EDG, because this Zeri is just getting online. I believe she has the Immortal Shield bows up very soon. But you never want to have a losing Lucian Nami lane, especially up against this Zeri. But unfortunately, that's just how the early game went. And Jieje, although he attempted to gain bot lane twice, they just weren't successful.
And now we finally get to see that Drake taken that we've been waiting for all game long. Shalambao will be the one to grab that. As another wave will be pushed in by Photic in the bottom side. 2 plates, 3 kills, an assist. Like you say, Shieldbow should be ready in base, just waiting for the recall. I mean, it couldn't be going better for them down in the bottom side. EDG want to answer on the top side of the map, though. Ala looking for a pull in onto Invincible. The Herald, just a quarter of its time left in JJ's pocket.
JJ is still not spotted on a ward just quite yet, but Invincible is level 10 and he's full health, so I'm wondering how this works for the side of EDG.
Yeah. No flash, surely they can get this one. The knockback means that they will secure this one. I think flash from Ala just to make sure it does finally happen, and Herald will be able to be placed. Ala will get a big influx of gold. Finally a positive for EDG.
They do pick up their first kill at 13 minutes in the game, and all the gold is going towards Ala. But my question is now, if all your resources are going towards the Cassante, can he truly shut down the bot lane of NIP, who already have their mythics online at this moment?
I mean, that's going to be the question, right? Can you take down Photic, especially when he's got the Yuumi on his shoulder and a Sejuani to body block? First tower, though, taken. Very nicely done here by EDG to try and snowball. Shalambao waiting in the wings, wants to make a play, has his ultimate. JJ spots him. Ala, the target, knocked back,
it's gonna solo him.
Is he actually getting a solo kill against the enemy top laner? Shalambao having a hell of a game for himself.
Come on, you could have given that to Invincible. That was so close with the Jace Q coming in, but Xiaolongbao just felt like being a little greedy and took the kill himself. But great things coming out of NIP, especially in this early game. I think Xiaolongbao has had a really good presence around all sides of the map, especially helping out Invincible and also Photic, where mythics are coming online. And I just think now that the Zeri has the Immortal Shield available, this Lucian and Akali isn't going to be able to ideally 100-0 your carry.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough, especially with the shielding and that coming out from Yuumi. Like, I think people often underestimate the amount of shielding that Yuumi actually gives during a fight with that exhaust there as well. Plus, there's a barrier. Like, I mean, Photic's basically invincible at this point. You're absolutely right. I can't wait for that nerf to exist in competitive play. That's what I'm waiting for at this point. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Photic can be very difficult to shut down. And the awkward thing as well for EDG is they've got the item online, the Gale Force there for Leave, but you kind of need the mandate as well. You kind of need that moment where Mako hits his mythic, and that's really when this duo comes alive.
Yeah, I mean, EDG's entire composition right now, we haven't seen a very huge lead coming out of Fofa. He is just up 10 CS in this matchup, but you are lacking a lot of damage, especially when all the gold did go towards Ala, where he went with the Frostfire Gauntlet. I guess he's a bit more tanky for the Zeri to slowly chip down in these team fights, but my eyes, of course, are on this Lucian and Akali to really win the fight for EDG.
Oh, Invincible starting to fight onto Ala here. As Pout TPs to the top side. It's going to be answered by TP from Fofo as well. Ala buying time as Invincible flashes out. Shock Blast goes in. Fofo dives into the play, but Shadow Bow is there to body block, there to CC. And here comes Photic to sweep up a kill. It goes from bad to worse for EDG.
Oh no, you're playing Akali into Sejuani where she already has the Radiant Virtue available in these team fights. Just such a struggle to find these kills onto NIP, but at least the good thing is that EDG is able to take down their first tower in the game through this bottom lane. But the Herald does go towards NIP once again, where I just see EDG slowly bleeding with this early game team comp.
Yeah, I mean, that tower in the bottom side really doesn't even quite feel like a silver lining. It feels like a consolation prize at best for them as they are losing everywhere else on the map. Mid lane tier 1, you got Pout pushing in the top side as well with the Herald in Shalabow's pocket. Everything looking fantastic. And this is what we wanted from NIP, right? We wanted to see if they could start to look a little bit more cohesive. Well, Shalabao, the leader of the troops right now.
Yeah, a lot of proactiveness coming out of NIP, just instantly playing towards Ala, who is overextended on this top lane tower. Fofa trying his dear heart to try and finish off Invincible, but he doesn't have enough damage. I believe that he only has an Oblivion Orb and blasting one at that point where he doesn't have a completed Mythic yet. So it's just very, very tough for the side of Fofo, and how is he going to really execute the carries when you're this behind in items?
Yeah, and you know, when you look at the total gold, EDG are not that far behind. They are definitely behind. It's 2,000 in 16 minutes, which is a reasonable lead. It's not as much as you would necessarily expect because of that first tower. Leave has been caught over the wall here. That's a shock blast. That's a final chapter, forcing the cleanse. Mako gets rooted. The tidal wave will stop the follow-up play.
God, like EDG is getting so desperate.
Yeah, it feels like, yes, the overall team gold is relatively close, but look at where the gold is, right? Ala having tank items is basically all EDG have to talk about.
Yeah, also all the major objectives going over to NIP, but this TP is going to come out of Ala, where we see a 2v2 in this top lane.
Yeah, Pout trying to clear the wave. Buy time for his teammate to arrive. Invincible's here. EDG have to think twice about the play, backing off here, looking towards Photic in the mid lane, who's perhaps being a little bit greedy here. 5 players from EDG moving towards the mid lane, but Photic steps away in time as Invincible moves down to catch the wave of the bottom side. So far, so good from NIP. This feels like a clean game, and that's really what we needed from NIP, right? Is not just a good early game, but looking good throughout the game. Nice, clean gameplay.
Yeah, I think NIP, their strength has always been this early game, but obviously their weakness is closing out those team fights or closing out the later game, because I think they just opt into really bad fights where they just get played into the enemy's hands. But in this instance, EDG isn't really being proactive or looking for those fights. So NIP is having a great time with this start, right? But looking at the side of EDG, I think with your composition, you have the Vi, you have the Akali, you really need these flanks in these team fights because you're not going to win a straight up 5v5.
No, absolutely not. I mean, it feels almost impossible at this stage. Even again, I can't believe how close the gold is between the two teams. And yet, it feels like NIP are so monstrously ahead because so much of that gold is in the pocket of Photic. And we know what Photic can do. Like, Photic was the centerpiece in previous years, back when they were Victory 5. Back on top esports as well, being able to show what he was capable of. This guy is an absolute hyper carry.
I think Photic is the most consistent player on NIP, especially on the starting roster. Invincible has had a really good showing in his recent games, but Photic has been that player throughout all these NIP games. And of course, the meta is very ADC focused, but even when NIP loses the early game or opts into these bad team fights, I don't think it's Photic's fault, and he's just been a standout player for the entire roster.
Yeah, he really has. There's Ala trying to get some crooks, but there's a whole squad just waiting in the wings. Ala forced to flash. Will be denied those crooks. Tower taken down in the bottom side, and potentially two here as the Herald dropped by Xiaolong Bao. 3-4 members strong on the side of NIP. There's no way Ala can defend this, so a nice fast tempo play coming out from NIP using that Herald effectively.
I think the only angle is if Ala goes for one of those crazy Cassante ults where it just chucks Photic into the arms of Leave and Fofo and he insta-dies.
Invincible gets his TP, gets his recall cancelled, but he still just walks away. Stuns across the team. Photic's now arriving as the final chapter across everybody. JJ, the target so far as the clash comes down. Photic steps way too deep in this one. The shield's coming on through. The healing is there. How is Photic alive right now? Fofo taken down as part of the 2v1 on the backside, but it's a 2v1 he can win, and Photic with a quadra.
Quadra starting out this first game series, and he is just absolutely unkillable with this little kitten on his shoulder, and also Sejuani constantly protecting him in these team fights. EDG just, they're looking very, very doomed in this game state. They aren't able to just shut down the carry of NIP, and these team fights are just looking so hard.
Yeah, I can't wait for Yumi nerfs. I really don't feel like Photic should have been able to survive that fight. Like, take a look at how low he gets and how many times he gets that low this time.
He has the Yumi passive available. He has the barrier available for Photic as well. He jumps into this fight and just starts DPSing the front line of EDG. But of course, you just can't get your hands onto Photic. Fofo tries for his dear life to really shut down this ADC, but the barrier, the Yumi heal, is just impossible to shut down. Even though you do have the Billion Orb on Fofo, the heal it just isn't enough.
Yeah, it's just insane. It was a good flash on the bubble, I'll admit, but yeah. I really am not sure Photic should have been able to survive. And guess what? Now he has a stopwatch as well. 6,000 damage done in a 20-minute team fight. That is something else from Photic. Incredible play there. Good mechanics to dodge those skill shots. Keep yourself alive and get that DPS out. Now 8-0-2. I mean, what more could you possibly want at the 21-minute mark?
It is what it is, because we have Leave building the RFC as well for a second item on the solution.
Mako takes a chunk from a shock blast there. Xiaolong Bao completely invincible on the front line. And now everything blasting across. EDG might just be hit with a gold difference right here as Photic firing away. Goes quite deep, but it's not even lost HP here. Fofo trying to escape. The laser over the wall won't quite find its target, but a shock blast will. And now chasing the rest of the squad. TP from Ala abandons his bottom lane. But in the meantime, Photic is just starting to push the next waves.
Fofo just cannot play these team fights. I was just focused on him the entire fight, and he got instantly silence chained. And of course, there's also a big Sejuani that's stopping you from getting access to that ADC. I just feel like if you're not looking for those flanks, or you have to look for a pick, these 5v5s are just so impossible.
Oh, cheeky little recall coming out there as Leave will be able to do exactly that. But not much you can do in this game. And like you say, Fofo just getting CC'd up like crazy. And this super short range composition out from EDG, when you fall behind like this, it becomes very difficult to have a sizable impact in the fights because you just can't get in.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, Leave has that RFC secondary on his item slot, but he just doesn't have enough damage to really shred through the tanks of the Sejuani and Sylas.
All right, CC chain up in the top side. Pow in a 1v3. So far, he seems to be winning. Xiaolong Bao steps on into CC. Everybody on the team up. And here comes Photic over the wall. Lasers in. Actually, at numbers disadvantage. Invincible on Photic in a 2v3. The lightning crash comes out. And Photic still alive. Invincible bought so much time. It's another triple for another Zeri. And it's a Baron on top.
12-0 for Photic on this Zeri. I'm not going to be surprised if this champion gets taken off the board for that second game in this series, but of course that team fight went so terribly for the side of EDG. Photic just eat over the wall and he popped that sneaky stopwatch where JJ finally found the angle to get onto this ADC, and Fofo was just hard focusing down Photic in this team fight, but with that stopwatch available, he baited them all in and everything else was still alive, so they were just slowly getting focus down, and Photic comes out alive once again.
Yeah, Photic, that stopwatch paying dividends, right? Keeping him alive, like you say, and another triple kill, 12-0-2. I mean, at this point, Photic is just collecting clips for his montage. He's just collecting clips for his next YouTube video, because there's no universe in which NIP loses, right? I feel like this is a done deal at this stage, especially with Drake coming up in 3 minutes, and that would be Chemtech Soul for the side of NIP.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely don't see this game going this way. With the Vi and Lucian Nami on the side of EDG, these early objectives went towards NIP, especially when you have that Zeri and Yuumi. They just wanted 2v2, and the map state is like this now.
Yeah. You know, one of the questions we had coming in for EDG was, can JJ and Mako lead the troops, you know? Can they bring this new version of EDG into the limelight and make the magic happen? So far, not ideal here in game number 1, as JJ having a really hard early game. Great punishing coming out from NIP. There's a very deep teleport from Bofo. He's on a mission. He's so far away, though, and the rest of the squad is just going to get engaged upon. The TP is too deep, and NIP punish handily. Pow! Can't quite connect onto leave for the bonus kill, but Photic can. A lightning clash on top of everything else. There's a kill for Invincible as Photic gets another triple. This is just multi-kill after multi-kill, and I think that might just be game.
Popo goes for the long flank with that pink ward available in the tri-push of bottom lane, but I think it was 10 minutes too late for EDG, and this first game is going to go towards NIP, and a 15-0 Zeri. Photic is going to be very happy.
Yeah, Fofo just TPs to Narnia, abandons the situation, gets out of there. A phenomenal game number 1 here from NIP. What an early game coming out from Xiaolong Bao. Like, I think he, you know, Photic got a lot of these kills. Photic is definitely the guy that got a lot of screen time here. But Xiaolong Bao was the one setting all of that up, right? This Sejuani in the early game was beautiful.
Xiaolong Bao was definitely the orchestrator of why NIP was able to get so ahead in that Zeri Yuumi matchup. We did see